Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm a social studies educator, historian, and host of this, the Everything is a Primary Source podcast. I'm also an avid collector of popular culture artifacts. I love what I find at thrift store outlets, garage sale leftovers, and what I spot just making my way around the built world. I enjoy sorting through boxes of free books and magazines, not to mention online collections like Internet Archive, and of course the Library of Congress. But you don't need to spend your time digging through bins or following online rabbit holes to get a look into the past. The movies and TV we watch, the books we read, and the games we play are all documents of the past. So is fashion, food, music, toys, even the roads we travel on and the places we live and work in. Everything is a primary source. This podcast is the result of exhibiting these kinds of artifacts in public, getting passersby to select an item they connect with, and then chatting with me to see what it says about the time, place, and people who made it. The conversation you are about to hear, therefore, is your history, my history, our history, through popular culture. Dan, which one do you go by?
Dan's good.
Dan, how are you liking this conference?
A lot going on here. It's actually awesome. It's my first time, and I did not know exactly what to expect. The speakers are amazing, and I'm super excited about Ken Burns tomorrow, and I was really into that. And little did I know that there was so much awesome and tremendous availability of resources here. There is just an incredible amount. It's like, I'm calling it social studies heaven, because there's just so much stuff. I got like 20 bags of stuff that I have to go through. So many good ideas. I think that there's a ton that could really help students be able to, reach their full potential and get the most out of education. So I'm excited. I'm super excited. I've loved everything.
Drive or fly from Erie?
I drove.
Okay, so that'd be a lot more possible to bring all that
That's
stuff.
Why, yeah. That's why I drove. Last year, one of our fellow educators went to the English one of these, basically the English version,
which is going on right now.
Yeah, exactly. And they gave me the lowdown that there's lots of stuff, and I was like, all right, I'm going to be prepared because I like bringing stuff back so I can share it with everybody. Hopefully, I'm department chair, so I want to share it with everybody.
So don't forget to take my card.
I gotcha, yeah.
Because, and I think that'll easily find itself, I'll give you like 20 because you have so much stuff it's going to easily get lost.
Yeah.
Because when I have the Everything is a Primary Source method it's all about navigating through all that stuff, right? So I teach all of my classes with 3 pieces of paper and that's it. And we use all of those resources, but we don't use them, if that makes sense. I don't have my students log into that and join this and have subscriptions, and we don't even have a textbook for most of my classes. I have a secondary source form for when they tackle text. I have a primary source form, and I have a homework form, and that's all I use to teach. And so all that stuff can definitely be handled with this. But you said social studies heaven, all of this here. What is your take on the status of the job right now? If this is heaven, why is this heaven?
Well, that's just a personal comment about me exciting as a person that loves social studies. So just as a person that loves social studies, I love being around all these awesome people that also appreciate and value social studies. These educators are incredible. So many of them have struck up conversations about what we do and how we do it and how we can do it better. And I just love being around people that are so passionate about social studies because I think personally, obviously, everything's important in education. STEM's important. But I think social studies is as important and is overlooked oftentimes because when it comes to what social studies I think can do, more so than any of those other disciplines actually, is critical thinking skills and making difficult decisions when you have limited information. And I think that's what we need most is people that can think, put information together, analyze it, and make a tough choice when there's not necessarily going to be right or wrong. Like how do you solve poverty, right? There's not a known answer. Like in math, there's always a right answer. We already know what it is, right? In science, for the most part, they know a lot of what they're going to do because they're following formulas. Social studies, it's not that easy, and I think it's actually the kind of thinking we need more of.
In a weird way, and I agree with your viewpoints absolutely, but in a weird way, I'm actually all right with us kind of being in the background and just being like, hey, here's a reminder, we're super important. We're the glue that holds together all those other classes, but I'm okay with us not always getting the spotlight, if that makes sense.
I'm okay with it in some ways. Like, obviously, I'm not necessarily going to want to have, a very regimented, cookie cutter type of a test. I'm glad we don't have that really. But what I don't like is because we don't have that, students, I think, do have a hard time sometimes remembering how important we are because they're so focused on excelling on the STEM the STEM topics, because that to them is what's getting them to college. To them, that's what they're going to get awarded with. That's what's, honestly, that's what's celebrated mostly now. And so I worry about the students not, I know obviously we do what we can as educators in the social studies world, but when the outside world's saying STEM, STEM, STEM all the time, sometimes I feel like we lose some of the students that way.
So you're a bit fearful that the students won't even be very proud of any achievements that they do in our world. It's
not even that.
It's not as celebrated as what
I guess at least on the educational level, but of course in real life, social studies is life. You know what I mean? So when they have things they actually care about and the things they really want to change or the difference they want to make, or even things that are their passions, it's going to be tied to social studies. So that's great. But again, I do feel like STEM's great. Again, don't get me wrong, it's all important and all matters. But I think social studies I'm just an advocate for how important social studies is, that's all.
Well, what you just said is a perfect slogan for a t-shirt. Social studies is life, period. Nice segue over to these t-shirts.
All right.
So the question I have, and I guess we could just kind of say in broadly, band t-shirts, rock band t-shirts. Here's a critical thinking question. Why did they make it?
All right, so I'm answering the question.
Yeah, what do you think?
So it could be a lot of reasons, but I'm guessing most of those look like they could have been merchandise sales at the concert themselves. So a band getting their name out there and being able to have other people that want to celebrate something they connect with, right? So music's something I absolutely love. I think that my father instilled in me a great love and passion of music, especially music of the 60s and 70s and stuff like that. Really, kind of for the most part, music that had a real, world connection to events and things that happened and things that were happening in the world. You can talk about like Bob Dylan was a big one. Bob Seger was a big one later on. But all kinds of stuff. But anyways, so probably they were probably sold to make some money for one thing, but also a way to get their band's name out of themselves. But the people that bought them, right? They just want to celebrate something they love
and have that direct ability to connect with each other
exactly,
without ever having to say anything. And what's interesting is that t-shirts and rock music, they haven't always gone together, because back in, like, say, the 60s, it wasn't really until the end of that era that it was socially acceptable to leave the house in just a t-shirt. T-shirt culture, which there's definitely a t-shirt culture. I can tell you that t-shirts and coffee mugs multiply like rabbits. But like before you know it, your t-shirt collection is just spilling over between free ones or ones you thought you got rid of but you still have, or intentionally bought at a concert or at a store like a Hot Topic or something because you want to show it off. But in an era of, say, like 1962, when the Beach Boys are coming out, you wouldn't see a lot of those sold because people didn't really wear t-shirts out and about. It was only like knock-around clothes, or if you're going to the actual beach. But if you're just walking around in society, it really didn't become acceptable attire until the 70s. And then from that point on, it just turns into a whole culture, doesn't it? Like, now you can communicate to each other through the logos, the media on your shirt, the kind of music you like, the kind of companies that it's like great free advertising. It's always funny to me when I see like somebody wearing like a Coca-Cola t-shirt. It's like, you like that drink so much that you're giving them free, you paid to advertise their shirt. For a band, it's a little bit different, isn't it?
Well, it's funny, the teacher culture thing, because so today, we're talking about students and things, I always have kids that'll walk in and they'll be wearing like a band shirt from, back in the day, an old school band, and I'll be like, oh, that's cool, so you really are, you're really into, just the other day it was a Black Sabbath t-shirt a kid was wearing. I'm like, oh, you're into Black Sabbath, that's really neat. And they're like, nah, I don't know anything about Black Sabbath, I just found it. I get that a lot, so it's funny how it changes too. Like, now kids do that sometimes. They're just, the culture. When I was a kid, no one would have wore a shirt, like you're saying, because it meant something to us. You know what I mean? If you wore a shirt and it would represent you and you're getting your viewpoint out, you're getting, some kind of connection out. Nowadays it is different a little bit. It's starting to change.
It's a fashion thing. If it matches their shoes.
Yeah.
Or
So even the t-shirt culture thing changes. Yeah, they care more about exactly like the fashion now and stuff too. But yeah, for us it was always about like, hey, I really like this band, and maybe you'll think it's cool because I'm wearing it, and maybe we'll talk about this band, and maybe it'll be awesome.
I mean, that was always the way I saw it, and so, I mean, these are from my collection. And
you got Boston bands there. That's why I thought that was kind of cool.
I curated the Aerosmith one. I mean, this is kind of a newer. I didn't get it at a concert or anything like that, but I like that. Aerosmith and Boston, they go together, but that's not something they've always made known. It's kind of like it's like a retroactive thing. It's like, oh yeah, the Bad Boys from Boston.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what they hear about them. And then I see you got
Dropkick Murphys. So I got this.
Coming up to Boston.
This is an old. This is from one of their first tours.
It looks old.
Back in like '97, and back then they were still a 4-piece. So they've since become. I don't even know if you can consider them a punk rock band anymore, or have been for a while, because they have like 9 guys on stage. They have all these new like accordions and tin whistles and like mandolins and stuff like that. And they've evolved, in other words.
Well, and that's a polo.
Right, because it's not even a t-shirt, you're right.
Yeah.
And I snapped, they were on the Escape from Boston tour. It was them, the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones.
Oh, wow, yeah, okay.
Bim Scala Bim, maybe one other group.
Ska bands.
Yeah, a couple, because that was during that third wave ska,
that,
when, that was getting really big. And the Murphys, they were, I think, the first band on stage. And this was back when their first singer, Mike McColgan, was still with them. And it was just like, I knew about them because I had a compilation CD with one of their songs on it. So I knew one of their songs. And so when I saw that they were on this tour coming to town, I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'll go see them. And immediately fell in love with them. It was like the coolest band. And I remember going right up to the guitarist afterwards, because with the punk rock groups, the culture, it's a t-shirt culture for sure. They all work at their own merch tables. So the band will leave the stage, and then they'll go back and sell the t-shirt. And the name of the guitarist, his name was Rick Barton, and he started Dropkick Murphys, but before that he was in another Boston group called the Outlets.
Yeah, I don't know.
And they're oftentimes overlooked, but I got this record at a record store in New Hampshire in like the discount section. I don't know if they realized it was signed by Rick Barton. So anyway, it's this like great meandering, which I just did on a ramble, but t-shirts, why they make it seems like a simple item, but there's a lot of packed in things with that.
Sure, yeah. And the reason why, if you're wondering why, you have a bunch of items here to choose, and I was looking at the t-shirts, again, my love of music and all that, but also the Dropkick Murphys thing's kind of got a history related to me, just because I was going to say that their band, Johnny Hardly Knew, there's some Johnny Hardly Knew Yet, right? Do you know Johnny Hardly Knew Yet? Yeah. It's got a lot of different meanings, but it has like, even though it isn't maybe necessarily, it's like Johnny Get Your Gun, and we have drums and guns, and you know what I mean? But it sounds history related, you know what I mean? And so like for a history person, it's like it's one of the reasons why I thought it was a cool song, because it's like, oh, this is kind of historical. This is kind of neat. If
there's any band that would have a tie to what we're doing, it would be them, because they do pull a lot from a lot of Irish music, and even Americana, and that's if anybody's going to fit into a social studies classroom, it would be them. And even more so, their second lead singer, Al Barr, his dad was a teacher.
See,
so
makes sense, right? But it's interesting. That was the first song of theirs that I heard that I was like, all right, this is interesting, and that's why I was drawn to it a little bit.
Yeah,
it's because of the history version, part of that. So that's cool.
So that's what it all comes down to. I really appreciate your time today.
All right, that's it. All right,
thank you very much, Dan.
Popular culture, by definition, connects and unites us, and proves that people of different backgrounds, in fact, have a lot in common with one another. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, at least in part, for that reason. If it connects with you and you'd like to add to it, or any of the podcast episodes, just visit everything-history.com and search for the Everything is a Primary Source project, which can be found in the classroom section of the website. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Be sure to rate and share this podcast wherever you are listening to it now, and follow Everything as a Primary Source on social media, including YouTube and especially Instagram. Thank you for listening to the EPS podcast, where everything is a primary source.